Bourbon's crisis begins. What if Kentucky's legendary bourbon industry is collapsing right now? Distilleries across the state are hitting the wall, and some are closing for good. In recent months, Kentucky's iconic $9 billion whiskey market has seen a wave of distillery bankruptcies that few saw coming. Once celebrated as a symbol of American craftsmanship and Southern heritage, bourbon is now facing a perfect storm of oversupply, shifting consumer tastes, aggressive international tariffs, and a dangerous amount of debt-fueled expansion. Major distilleries filing for bankruptcy. The storm became visible when Luca Mariano Distillery in Danville filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Once viewed as a promising new entrant in the Kentucky market, Luca Mariano collapsed just weeks after launching. Creditors reported more than $25 million in unpaid debts, sending a strong signal to the industry that even fresh startups aren't safe. Following closely, Garrard County Distilling, a facility backed by over $250 million in investment, was placed under receivership after failing to repay over $26 million to Truist Bank. But the shock didn't stop there. Even Kentucky Owl, a brand under the global umbrella of Stoli Group USA, filed for bankruptcy due to declining U.S. sales and a paralyzing cyber attack that disrupted its operations. Oversupply flooding the market. The root of this crisis stems from a massive oversupply issue that distilleries created during the post-2020 bourbon boom. Encouraged by increasing global interest, Kentucky producers ramped up aging barrels, reaching over 14 million in storage by early 2025. That decision backfired. The anticipated surge in sales never arrived. Instead, data from the last 2 years show U.S. bourbon sales actually fell by 1.2% in 2023 and another 4% in early 2024. Warehouses are now filled with unsold inventory, and cash flows have dried up. The market is oversaturated, and companies don't have the liquidity to recover. Changing tastes among U.S. consumers. While distilleries flooded the market with more bourbon, American drinkers began shifting their preferences. A growing number of younger consumers now prefer low-alcohol beverages like hard seltzers, flavored cocktails, and ready-to-drink RTD options. TikTok trends and social media platforms have also accelerated this change, promoting lighter drinks as cooler and more lifestyle-friendly. To make matters worse, rising interest in health and wellness, alongside the popularity of cannabis and weight loss medications like Ozempic, is cutting deep into traditional alcohol consumption. This generational shift has left distilleries chasing a market that's simply no longer there. If you're finding this breakdown eye-opening, go ahead and like the video, drop a comment on what you think is fueling this collapse, and share this with someone who loves bourbon. And of course, subscribe for more in-depth looks at U.S. industries that are rapidly changing. Global trade pressures adding fuel. Just as domestic sales began to slow, international challenges added even more pressure. In recent years, Canadian retailers began pulling U.S. whiskey brands from shelves in protest of trade disagreements. Meanwhile, the European Union is threatening to bring back a 50% tariff on American whiskey as early as 2026, a massive blow to export profits. These trade barriers are not only making U.S. bourbon less competitive abroad, but they're also deterring long-term foreign partnerships. Global demand was once a lifeline. Now, it's just another unstable variable distilleries can no longer rely on. Costly during the bourbon boom, distillers, large and small, invested millions into expanding operations, building larger facilities, and hiring staff to prepare for future demand. These expansions were mostly financed with debt. With today's slower revenue flow and growing interest payments, many brands are buckling under financial pressure. Luca Mariano's crash is a case in point, but it's not alone. Many small to mid-size operations now face restructuring, asset sales, or total shutdown. Expansion without sustainability has left them exposed to even minor shifts in the market. Even big names are struggling. It's not just the newcomers and boutique brands. Legacy players are also tightening their belts. Brown-Forman, one of the most iconic bourbon companies, recently laid off 12% of its workforce and shut down a cooperage, its own barrel-making operation, to cut costs. These moves are aimed at saving $70 to $80 million annually, a clear signal that even giants are preparing for rougher waters. Campari Group, which owns Wild Turkey and Russell's Reserve, also reported a significant 8.1% drop in U.S. sales, underlining the broader market contraction across the industry. Retail shelf space shrinking. Retailers, both online and offline, are also adjusting to this changing landscape. Shelf space, once dominated by a growing list of small batch bourbons, is now being pulled back in favor of bestsellers and new cocktail offerings. This shrinking visibility is hurting smaller brands most. Without prime placement, impulse purchases decline, brand recognition fades, and marketing expenses go up. With fewer opportunities to reach the customer, distillers who rely on boutique positioning are finding it harder than ever to stay in the game. Impact on local economy and tourism. The bourbon industry isn't just a collection of distilleries. It's a cultural backbone in Kentucky. The crisis threatens more than corporate profits. It jeopardizes thousands of jobs, regional tourism, and associated industries like agriculture and logistics. Distilleries bring in millions of tourists each year who support local hotels, restaurants, and transportation services. As facilities close or downsize, entire towns are bracing for economic slowdown. The state's bourbon trail, once a major attraction, could lose its luster if the closures continue. Bardstown Bourbon is bucking the trend. One notable exception is Bardstown Bourbon Company. While many peers are scaling back, Bardstown is actually doubling down on its growth strategy. The company continues to add production capacity and expand its distribution network. It's also focusing on private label and contract distilling, which helps mitigate some of the volatility in direct retail sales. Whether this will succeed long-term is uncertain, but it shows that adaptability might be the key to survival in this rapidly changing market. Consumers may see price drops. There's a silver lining for drinkers. With an oversupply of bourbon aging in barrels, prices may fall in the near term. We're already seeing discount promotions and aggressive pricing across many brands. However, experts warn that this may not last. If tariffs return and production scales down sharply, prices could swing back up in the future. Consumers should stay alert and stock up wisely if they want to benefit from the current slump. What comes next for the industry? The Kentucky bourbon industry is now at a crossroads. Distilleries must adapt quickly. That means cutting debt, diversifying their product portfolios, and finding new ways to connect with evolving consumers. Brands that ignore the new landscape will continue to fall. Those that embrace innovation, such as ready-to-drink formats or sustainable packaging, may find ways to bounce back. The path forward won't be easy, but it's not impossible. Some companies will rise from this collapse stronger than before. Final thoughts on collapse, expansions, and high debt. The recent wave of bankruptcies in Kentucky's whiskey industry marks the end of a golden era driven by aggressive growth and sky-high expectations. What we're witnessing is a reality check. With consumers choosing new trends, international trade in flux, and inventories piling up, bourbon brands must rethink how they operate. It's no longer enough to have history or prestige. This is now a game of resilience, reinvention, and smart decisions. As we watch more headlines roll in, it's clear bourbon may still have a future, but not without a serious reset.